Hi! So I'm actually making this intro as I've done this video because I'm realizing that this video took so long and I nerded myself so into a corner with just talking about plastic. So I think I'm going to leave it at that, and this video will be mainly about plastic and good packagings, bad packagings, what you think about when you buy albums that include plastic. This will be the first part of a series of videos. Hello! Yes, it is finally getting made. My favorite and my least favorite packagings of K-pop albums. And I first of all want to say that I buy my albums for the music. I want to support the artist because I really like the music, and so I will buy the album regardless of the packaging is good or bad. But if to say an album has two different packagings, I will of course go for the one I like the most. And when I determine what a good packaging is, I think I rely a lot on my profession as an archivist and what I've learned, what I continue to learn. Because when you are an archivist, it is very important to know which materials work on preserving the information on the documents that you have and which do not. For example, cardboard paper is always good, but there are different types of paper, of course, and different types of glue, for example, and plastic, metal, tape, never good things to use, which is also why you might notice that I in some cases take a lot of or direct a lot of my attention towards these things. But I will in this video of course give pointers to why I think certain way that I do and what I see good and what I do not see good. So let's start with my dear friend plastic. No, not a dear friend of mine, but here we go. There's of course different types of plastic, but let's start with the jewel case. Yes, the lovely jewel case, which in so many instances break. Usually it has broken even before you take off the plastic, being shipped to you, or just standing in a corner in a music store. This I bought, looked really nice, opened it up, realized it was broken. Right up here, because that is where it usually breaks. I don't want to break it further but you can see here a crack. Another place let's be careful. As you see, when something breaks it falls apart. Another place where it usually breaks is right here in the middle. These, I don't know how to say, these small plastic knobs thingies, they often break just by pushing a bit or in the mail if you get it sent to you. It is very easy to break, so you always have to be very careful. Also, now that isn't the case with this one, since it has this nice little protective cover here, but the plastic often breaks right across here as well. I did get a comment once saying it was the way they were molded, that the album is molded in a way that makes the parts that shouldn't be so fragile the most fragile. I do understand why companies make these, because they are cheap, but it isn't all that great for the fan because, well, it breaks so easily. I personally would prefer, if you want to make a cheap packaging like a jewel case, you would instead use one of these, or the digipack usage. It's simple cardboard, but if you drop it, it will not break and cause big cracks everywhere. And it is very simple usage. You do not have to make it more complicated if you just want a simple. But this is, for me, much more preferred than plastic. There is also the other kind of digipack which combines plastic and cardboard and paper. I'm not particularly fond of this either because, well, again, you have this fragile set here and this often breaks as well. and then you have this heavy part, and then you have it attached to cardboard, which can make the cardboard rip because it might not be as heavy as the plastic they've put on. Especially I think it's important if you drop anything that, you know, the most vital part of an album doesn't crack, which is the casing, of course, and the CDs themselves. But as long as the CDs are protected, you have to keep in mind that not only the CD should be protected, but the album itself should be free from damage, or as much as possible if something happens to it. Then we have other types of plastic, I'm not particularly fond of either, and it is this type. YG did this with both their first and second mini album, but I have to say the second mini album is worse. I really love this album with the songs, and it's signed, so it's a dear possession of mine. However, it is a bit weirdly designed. In the back it has these kinds of things, which if an album stands next to it, it can be misshaped by these. We open this up, it is filled with cards, and it is not fully filled. That is one thing you have to think about. Often when you put a photo book or cards in an album, it has to be filled up completely to the top. Otherwise the cards or the photo book will be misshaped inside the box. This is not fully filled up, so these cards easily bend this way. I don't know if you can see, but it has a certain bend to it. It's a bit of a damage to, as it has been standing like this, they will shape in this form. It is also very important when you package paper that you do not package too much, you do not package too little. This is of course not an easy job to design, but it should always be thought about. These, however, are too small for the box, so not only that, but they jump around a bit, so they can get damaged at the sides. But the thing I don't like about this album is the fact that they there is always, we talked about the knob right here, which can be very fragile. There is another way to put a plastic knob on here that you can't press. The problem is when you do that, it can leave a mark in the back of this one as well, because it's so hard. And it's also so hard to take out the CD without actually ripping the CD apart. I'm not going to do it now. Out of all the packagings I have, this CD is the hardest to take out, and I have close to 900 albums now, which should tell you that this is not a good way to attach a CD. And then I have another one which I really would love to love, but this one I just don't. We can compare it to GD's Heartbreaker, which is another packaging that I really love, despite the fact that it is a plastic one. First of all, this one, for some reason, is much more fragile than this one. As you can see, it has broken apart a little bit here. And it's not because I've done something excruciatingly damaging to it. It's just that the plastic isn't very good. You can see right here. And it is also a very odd packaging. First of all, we have this protective cover. And then we have this, which is just a cardboard piece, which came in like this. When I got it, it was already like this. It's easy to do when it's just a cardboard thingy that you basically almost have to take out to get to the other material, which is a photo book. This, I have to say though, is one of my absolute favorite photo books of all time. I absolutely love this photo book. And the pictures then, of course. And then it comes with a jewel case. Again, not fond of jewel cases. Here I can describe it a little bit better. It easily scratches on the surface, and it can become quite hard scratches. And here, yeah, I have not done anything to this, but here you can see already one of these small things have taken a hike. No, two of them actually. Oh no, yep, two of them are broken. When all of them are broken, we have the problem that the CD starts dancing around inside of the album. And you basically have to replace this part for it to hold up again. Since I brought up GD's Heartbreaker, which is also plastic, you might wonder why is this better compared to this one? Well, first of all, this is very creative, but it's also very well protected. We have the first layer here, protection. Ooh. As you can see. It makes a lot of sounds, don't worry. And again, you can see I've had this for a long time, so it gets a bit worn out, but there is no big damage on it. Then we also have this, which is, again, just a little bit worn out because I've had it for a long time. This is the fact that this happens to plastic, which is the main reason why I do not recommend plastic. It gets worn out and it gets scratched. No matter what you do, it is plastic, and it just is. But I love how creative they were with this and how they actually thought about it. This, we should put an extra protective cover here because, as you can see, it is molded after his face, which would make the front right here very fragile. For example, one time I poked in his nose, but fortunately I could poke it out again. But I really like that they thought about this extra cover. Then we move into the album. This photo book has something I am not particularly fond of. It is stapled. When you staple it, it will leave marks. And sometimes if for example, the paper here is thin, it can easily rip off, and all of a sudden you have 2 pages, for example, then that are loose and you can't attach them again because the part where they are supposed to be attached is all ripped apart. Stapling is never a good idea. Sometimes it's actually better to just leave the pages loose. Also, stapling means metal, and metal can start to rust, which will leave nasty spots right where the metal is located. Otherwise, I love this photo book, by the way. It's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Then we have the CD, again with this kind of a stub. And as you see, they pressed into it here, which I'm not particularly fond of. But again, for being an album made almost entirely out of plastic, it is still a really good album. But unfortunately, you have to deal with the consequences that comes with using something out of plastic. I also want to talk about another CD which has plastic on it, which is Rain's special edition of his album Rain Effect. This is very creatively done. To get into it, you first have to take this one off. Again, this is gorgeous standing on its own, but if you want to put it against other CDs, you can see it leaves this nasty marks on the albums right next to it, just as the 21 can do. 21 album can do. This, however, is a bit worse. You can see it actually pokes out quite a lot. And again, you can see here at the bottom where it's had it standing, it has these small damages, which is unfortunate. But that is, again, way with plastic. Even if it's thick plastic, the plastic they use, it leads to this. It is, however, a gorgeous album, like I said. I do love this album. And when you take it out, first of all, the CD is very well protected, like so. And then you can see this, they even have that for an effect, which is a bit, well, I don't know how to feel about that, but it does look cool, which is, I'm sure, were the thing they aimed when they did this. So the CD is well protected. Again, it is plastic, and this one is a bit iffy, so I'm glad I have an extra protection here around it. And then we have the rest of the items. We have a photo book and a notebook. Quite creatively. I love the colors, how everything just matches so well. So it has the negative aspect of being a plastic album, as well as this whole, well, it looks cool, but it can damage the albums right next to it. If you don't want to stand it up on its own, then you don't have to worry about that, and it just looks gorgeous. It looks expensive, that I can say. It looks expensive, even though it obviously wasn't that expensive to make. So they pulled that off so well. Same as with this one. When the price is the same as other albums, and it still looks very luxurious and very unique, and the packaging isn't badly made, even though it's plastic, you know they've succeeded. But there again is always the negative impact that it scratches easily and it breaks easily. So that's something to consider when you buy especially jewel cases. Jewel cases are everywhere, and I still prefer cardboard. It's long lasting and it doesn't break. And in some ways you can always repair cardboard in a way you can't really do with plastic. And then we have one of the biggest grief of my whole collection, and just this album. Before you go, the repackage, you'll keep your head down. As you can see here, it's broken. I tend to take very good care of my albums. I do not drop them or anything, but this one I managed to drop a few years back, right on my toe. Not a good experience. This is like a brick in weight. I can still feel the pain. Actually, I stubbed my toe yesterday, so that's probably the reason why I feel this now, which has absolutely nothing to do with this. It just hurts a lot. But the reason why this broke, and you see, oh, this is thick plastic, this is really thick. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. When you have an album as heavy as this one, and then it falls, because this one will get, say, front heavy. Because the heaviness is not in the back, it's in the cards. It's in the cards. No, but this consists of cards. It consists of cards right in here. Again, we have this plastic here, which I talked about before. The knob right here. Again, not recommended. By the way, you can change these cards, which is the problem is just that this slipcase is so tight that it's really hard to get them out, and then get them in again is the even harder. But it gets front heavy, so it will land on its, so we call it face, or on the plastic, which will make the plastic break. For me, it broke off right like this, and you can tell which part it landed on. Yeah, right from here to here. It's also when it stands, this is not, it's not always this, yeah, it's not all that even. So if it leans a bit forward, you can imagine how easily it will fall front over. The thing with this is that you are supposed to keep it like this with the front on, and then you have the pictures here, and you can change to whichever picture you want and use it as a frame, and so it should be standing like that. I do not have it standing like that because it will fall down if I do, and I do not want this to fall down yet again. So you can see I tried to glue it, but even though I used really good glue, I used the strongest I had, there was no point because it couldn't be glued back together. It is plastic, you can't really glue it back together like that. Not this type at least. So unfortunately, I cannot recommend this package. I was so bummed out when I dropped it. Still bums me out that I dropped it. You should never drop your albums. But sometimes, you know, you fumble and you drop things and you drop things. Before we end the plastic part, I would like to address this as well, because it's easy when you look at albums like this to think, well, this isn't plastic. And you look here and then you see one part of it is plastic. Just like the Exo Digipack I showed you before, it has both paper, both cardboard and plastic. And in this case with 9 muses, you can see right here, this one is broken because first of all it's only like 3 here, so if one breaks, well, the CD just dances around. And again, this part can often be heavy and you have to be very careful not to rip apart anything and the spine. And that was everything, yes! I would like to thank you so much for watching and stay tuned for the next part. I hope you enjoyed this and found it helpful. I got so nerdy. Oh my gosh. Oh, I hope I won't be doing this for as long, but plastic is not a friend of mine, so I really and sincerely assure you that the other parts will not be as negative as this one. I assure you that. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. Bye! I have to say though that if you want to repair something, do not use tape. I've seen the effect these can have on old documents. For example, say a 50-year-old document, and you take it out and then you have tape on it. There are of course different types of tapes, but mainly the one they used to use. It's, well, let's say there is no stickiness left, and let's do it. This is the paper here, and you have the tape right here. Then you basically have a nice brown line right here where the tape used to sit, and you can just take it off because there is no stickiness left, and it's basically almost like it crumbles because just, yeah, the tape is mostly, it's discolored and nasty looking right on the paper, and it just looks really bad.